Hi, my name is Kerry. I'm co-president of the Connecticut Young Democrats, and I live at home with my parents. Majority of the young professionals involved in our organization have trouble affording the high housing costs in Connecticut. You'll hear in more detail, but we have some of the highest housing costs in the country. While the high housing costs affect a lot of people in Connecticut, it has a particular impact on young people. Young adults in their 20s and 30s have had an especially hard time affording housing because we're just beginning our careers. At 20 and 30 years old, sometimes we're really trying to find a job. So by the time we're into our 30s, we finally establish a living wage and a wage that will allow us to afford a home. The problem right now is there are just too many homes for us to buy. There's a lot of the high-end development going on, but not enough of the affordable housing. A person making $40,000 a year could be a teacher, an entry-level person, a lot of people in our organization. It's very difficult to afford a home with that kind of salary here in Connecticut. However, if you compare that to other states, it is definitely doable. So if you have a transferable job, say a nurse, a teacher, a police officer, a graphic designer like myself, you can go to another state and buy a house. Our organization believes in creating more affordable housing and to also look outside the box at mixed unit housing, where urban centers can mix residential housing and commercial hubs. I think it's very attractive to young people to be able to go to work, shop, and socialize very close to their homes. If Connecticut does not make it a priority to promote affordable housing, young professionals will continue to leave. And as co-president of the Connecticut Young Democrats, we see that every year, people leaving the state to find better jobs and more affordable places to live. I'd like to hand it over to Emily Moos, who will describe some of the ways young professionals are hurt by the lack of affordable housing.
Thank you. I'm glad to be able to speak on this important issue today. This is one that's affected me both professionally and personally. I'm 25 years old. I grew up in nearby Simsbury, Connecticut. Growing up, Hartford became my favorite city, and I'm now an urban planner. I focused my studies on Hartford when I was an undergraduate and a graduate student, and even wrote an urban design thesis on downtown Hartford. I was excited to come back and to make a difference here, but when I came back, I realized that I really couldn't afford to live in the city as a young planner. In fact, with such high rents, I and many of my friends can't really afford to live in most areas of Connecticut as young professionals and still be able to look toward investing in a home here in the near future. Many of us would have to pay well over 50% of our salaries on housing and we'd have trouble making ends meet. We do. Many of us live with our parents because, and I'm included in that, because living on our own is too expensive on our career starting salaries. I would love to walk to work, but I can't afford to live in downtown, so I must make a 40-minute commute every day. And I have friends in other states, definitely, that would love to live in Connecticut near where they grew up, but they can't afford to. And actually, most of the time when I'm visiting them, that's where I'm doing my shopping and socializing in other states. So I've always been committed to Connecticut and making a difference here, but I sometimes find myself tempted by other areas to live, even other states where housing is definitely cheaper. This bill being discussed today is definitely a ray of hope for us, and it would create affordable housing opportunities so that Connecticut does not appear to have closed its doors on the young people just starting out and wanting to live here. So thanks. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Marchwackers.
Hello. My name is Jennifer Marchwackers, and I'm 29 years old, and I live in Middletown, Connecticut. I'm married, and my husband and I are the same age and have been out of college for about 8 years each, and we both have our master's degrees. We were lucky enough to find a starter home to invest in about 3 years ago, except as we're now talking about starting a family and the next steps of our lives together, we're realizing that a home that would be large enough to have a family in is very much out of our reach. We're very concerned about the affordability of housing in Connecticut, and even though we live in a fairly affordable area, realize that in no time soon will we be able to really move on to a home which will enable us to start the family that we want to have.
My name's Corey Brinson. I'm an attorney in Hartford downtown, and I'm also a member of HYPE, Hartford Young Professionals and Entrepreneurs, which is an affiliate of the Metro Hartford Alliance. And I'm here to say that there is a crisis. There's a crisis in Connecticut, and particularly in the greater Hartford area when it comes to housing. The young professionals in this area, as everyone else has remarked, housing in the area, as everyone else has remarked, is very high. Young professionals who have gone off to school and have been educated have not been able to realize the American dream through home ownership. And many young professionals in the 20 and 30-year-old range are leaving this state in dramatic fashion and in large numbers because we've been shortchanged. And I think this is a problem that members of our legislation, the Assembly, can do something about through this housing bill. I think it's important that if you go off to school and you work hard and you've done your part of the bargain, that you come back to where you're from, and you should be able to afford some place to be able to invest your money and live out the American dream. I think for those people who do own, you spend too much of your salary into housing, and that doesn't allow us young professionals to save for our future. I think saving rates are down dramatically, particularly among young people. And if you look in this state, that's in large part due to housing. So in closing, I just want to say that this is a crisis, that if there are no young people, if myself and the people behind me aren't here in 10 and 20 years, who will be the next leaders of our community? Who will be the next business leaders and civic leaders of this community? And so without us, there is no great tomorrow. And I ask people to support this bill because I think it will have a direct impact on this state and on young professionals to be able to live out our dream. Thank you.